What comes to mind when you think of American history? The Declaration of Independence? The Civil War? Maybe the moon landing? These are the monumental events we all learn in school, the big, bold headlines of our nation's story. But what if I told you that the history you know is only part of the picture? What if the most fascinating, surprising, and even crucial stories are the ones that have been left out, hidden in the shadows, or simply forgotten? Today, we're going on an archaeological dig, not through dirt and sand, but through the pages of time. We are unearthing America's hidden history, revealing the untold stories that will change the way you see this nation forever. Get ready, because the history you thought you knew is about to get a lot more interesting. Let's start with a mystery from the very beginning. We often hear about the Pilgrims landing at Plymouth Rock, but what about the stories that came before? Long before the Mayflower, there were Vikings in North America. Around the year 1000, Leif Erikson and his Norse explorers established a settlement in what is now Newfoundland, Canada, calling it Vinland. Imagine, centuries before Columbus, there were Europeans living, trading, and interacting with the native peoples of this continent. Archaeological evidence at Lonso Meadows proves this wasn't just a myth. This wasn't a brief visit, it was a settlement. Why isn't this chapter a centerpiece of our colonial story? Challenges the neat narrative of a new world waiting to be discovered. Speaking of Columbus, his arrival set off a chain of events that we are still grappling with today. But we rarely talk about the sheer diversity and complexity of the civilizations that were already here. In the American Midwest, near modern-day St. Louis, stood the magnificent city of Cahokia. At its peak, around 1100 AD, it was larger than London at the time, the population of tens of thousands. It boasted enormous earthen mounds, the largest of which, Monk's Mound, is bigger at its base than the Great Pyramid of Giza. It was a hub of trade, culture, and power. Yet how many of us have even heard of this massive pre-Columbian metropolis? Its story reminds us that America's urban history didn't begin with European settlers. Now, let's fast forward to the Revolutionary era. We know the names Washington, Jefferson, and Franklin. But what about the women who were just as vital to the cause? Have you heard of the Culper Spy Ring? It was one of the most effective intelligence networks of the war, feeding George Washington crucial information, and a key, yet often anonymous. Member was a woman known only by the code name Agent 355. Her identity remains a historical mystery, but her bravery was undeniable. She and countless other women acted as spies, fundraisers, and even soldiers disguised as men. They risked everything for a revolution that wouldn't even grant them the right to vote. Their stories are not just footnotes. They are the backbone of the fight for independence. Let's also reconsider the narrative of the westward expansion. It's often portrayed as a heroic saga of hardy pioneers. But for many, it was a story of displacement and forgotten promises. Consider the Exodusters. After the Civil War, as Reconstruction failed to protect them from violence and oppression in the South, thousands of African Americans embarked on a mass migration to Kansas. They sought freedom and the chance to own their own land, creating all-black towns like Nicodemus. This was a powerful act of self-determination, a search for a true promised land. It's a story of incredible hope and resilience that is often completely overshadowed by the classic cowboy tales. While we're in the West, let's talk about the Chinese immigrants who built the Transcontinental Railroad. They performed some of the most dangerous work, blasting through the Sierra Nevada mountains. For less pay and in harsher conditions than their white counterparts. When the railroad was completed in 1869, the celebratory photo at Promontory Summit famously excluded the Chinese workers who made it all possible. Their contribution was immense, connecting the country and fueling its economic growth. Yet they were deliberately erased from the picture. Literally. This forgotten labor is a critical piece of the puzzle of how modern America was built. Moving into the 20th century, the tales get even more complex. Do you know about the Battle of Blair Mountain in 1921? It was the largest labor uprising in American history. Over 10,000 coal miners in West Virginia, fighting for the right to unionize and for basic human dignity, went to war against coal company operators and law enforcement. For 5 days, they battled with guns and even improvised bombs dropped from private planes. The federal government had to intervene to stop the bloodshed. It was a literal war, fought on American soil, for workers' rights. Why is this monumental conflict, which helped shape our modern labor laws, so rarely discussed? And think about the world of innovation. We celebrate Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, and the Wright brothers. But what about the inventors who were pushed to the margins? A man named Lewis Latimer, the son of formerly enslaved parents, was a brilliant inventor and draftsman. He didn't invent the light bulb, but he did invent a much longer-lasting carbon filament, making electric lighting practical and affordable for the average home. He worked alongside Edison and Alexander Graham Bell, yet his name is hardly known. His story, and those of many other black and female innovators, are testament to the genius that has always existed in every corner of American society, even when it wasn't acknowledged. Even our cultural history has hidden layers. The Roaring Twenties bring to mind images of flappers and jazz clubs, but it was also the era of the Harlem Renaissance, a cultural explosion that redefined black art, literature, and music for America and the world. Figures like Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, and Duke Ellington weren't just creating. They were challenging stereotypes and forging a new identity. This wasn't just a sidebar to the 20s. It was a central driving force of American modernism. These are just a handful of the countless stories buried in the archives of American history. The tale of the female computers at NASA, the human calculators who did the math that sent men to the moon, the story of the Zoot Suit riots in Los Angeles, a clash of culture and race during World War II, or the history of the Tuskegee Airmen, the African-American pilots who fought prejudice at home to become one of the most decorated units in the war. So why did these stories get lost? Sometimes, history is simplified for the sake of a clear narrative. Sometimes it's because history has often been written by the powerful, and the stories of the marginalized, the workers, the women, and the minorities are deemed less important. But these hidden histories matter. They provide a fuller, more honest, and far more compelling picture of who we are as a nation. They show us that America has always been a place of struggle, of diverse voices, and of relentless striving for a better future. They remind us that heroes and innovators come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. Unearthing these stories isn't about rewriting history or diminishing the events we already know. It's about adding to it, enriching it, and making it whole. It's about understanding that the American story is not one single melody, but a complex, beautiful, and sometimes dissonant symphony, and every single instrument deserves to be heard. So the next time you think about American history, I encourage you to dig a little deeper. Ask questions. Look for the names you don't recognize and the events that aren't in the headlines. Because in those hidden stories, you'll find the true, unfiltered, and breathtaking spirit of a nation that is far more complex and fascinating than you ever imagined. Thanks for joining us on this historical deep dive. If you found these stories as captivating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys into the untold. Let me know in the comments which hidden history you find most fascinating, or if there's one you think we should cover next. See you in the next video.